Good morning, I'm Michael Tannousis. I'm a candidate running for State Assembly for the 64th Assembly District. And I'm joined here today by Assemblywoman and Congressional candidate Malliotakis, and also Assembly Member Michael Reilly. And we're here standing in front of Andrew's Diner. We're here to talk about today the brazen burglary that occurred a few days ago at this establishment. According to my count, I believe there's about 5 burglaries that have occurred along Highland Boulevard on the East Shore of Staten Island. And I want to point you guys out to this window here, because this is where, just to show you, just to show you here, this is the window where the perpetrators broke in. And that really demonstrates how brazen of an attack this was to this establishment. So our small businesses have been suffering for the past 7-8 months because of the COVID crisis. Many of them are not even doing close to the amount of business that they were doing previously. Not only has the state and the city failed to support our small businesses, but now they're suffering with the consequences of the failed bail reform law. And I think it's very important to note that a burglary, given my experience as a prosecutor, I have found that burglaries, for the most part, are committed by career criminals. Nobody starts off their criminal career with a burglary. They're always done by people that have criminal records, that have a bench warrant history, and given that fact, I believe it is my intention, once elected, to have burglary in the 3rd degree included on the list of where a judge could determine bail. And I just want to show people here, given the window here, given the fact that all they had to do was take an object, break the window to enter the establishment, I think really goes to show that this bail reform has really empowered career criminals to continue to commit crimes. So crime is up. Currently, we have an election coming up. As I've stated previously, elections have consequences. Make sure your voices are heard. We are in an unprecedented year. Crime has increased because of the radical progressive agenda that has been pushed through the legislature. And as I've mentioned previously, one of the reasons why bail reform doesn't work is because in the criminal justice system, everything needs to be treated on a case-by-case basis. No 2 cases are ever alike. Whether it's the facts that are different, whether it's the defendants that are different, whether it's their criminal histories, their bench warrant histories, you cannot have a blanket law that will tell a judge if an individual, no matter what their history is charged with this crime, you are not allowed to set bail. This does not help the criminal justice system. All this does is empower the criminals to continue to commit crimes because it sends the message to them that there are no repercussions. So with that being said, I encourage all our fellow citizens to go out and vote on election day and to make their voices heard if they are unhappy with the status of the bail reform laws and if they aren't happy with everything that New York State has done. With that being said, I'd like to turn it over to our next Congresswoman, Malliotakis.
I want to thank Mike for hosting this today. Look, what's very frustrating for me as a state legislator, I know Mike Reilly feels the same, is that we warned this was going to happen. We said this was going to happen. You know, I said it 3 years ago when I ran for mayor that the policies being put in place under one-party rule were going to make us less safe. And here we are 3 years later, and a year after we said quite clearly that we were going to have this issue of crime spiking as a result of this broken bail law. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Murder has gone up, shootings have gone up, burglaries have gone up, car thefts have gone up, and it has to stop. We need to restore common sense. This idea, as Mike said it perfectly, that they're empowering the bad guys. And they're taking away the tools from the NYPD to keep us safe. That is what's happening under one-party Democratic rule in the city and the state. We need a balance. It's about having a balance. And You know, we fought very hard, and we did get some things, some crimes added back onto the list. It took us 7 months, and we got the governor and the very state legislators that voted for this ridiculous law to add certain crimes back onto the list in which a judge could use discretion. Originally, they even had homicide, manslaughter, felony drug charges, strangulation, assault of a child, all on the list in which you would have a blanket release, regardless of what your criminal history was. We had to fight, and we got some of those fixes. And now I'm entrusting that Michael Tannousis is going to carry the ball further, and that he's going to add on to those and make sure that we restore public safety to the streets of this city and this state. I mean, it's heartbreaking to see innocent people, hardworking people, like Gus and George, who came here to achieve the American dream, and that they're already suffering because of the pandemic, and now they have the deck stacked against them because our politicians are putting criminals ahead of law-abiding citizens. It's absolutely disgusting. I can guarantee you, when they find this guy, or multiple people, when they find them, you will see that they have a history. Because this is what always happens. You read the newspaper, they finally catch the person, and then it's like they had a dozen arrests, 2 dozen arrests, maybe even 3 dozen prior arrests. So these are career criminals that are being released back onto the street. In fact, the chief of the NYPD said 3,000 people released under this law committed another 9,000 crimes. How can our government abdicate its responsibility to keep the public safe? So for me, as I said all along in this campaign, this election is about law and order. It's one of the paramount issues in this campaign. We cannot continue to support those who either voiced support for this law or voted for this law. We need to support common sense, law and order. And like Michael, I'm very proud to have the endorsements of the NYPD unions, the men and women who keep us safe, and they need us. They need elected officials in the community to have their back. Thank you.
Now I'd like to turn it over to our Assemblyman, Mr. Mike Reilly.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, thanks for hosting this event. And George and Gus, thank you for allowing us to be here. And you have our support. You will always have our support. You know you have my family support because we love it here. Right? This is a prime example of the bail reform fail. It's going to happen with the person or persons, as Nicole has mentioned, that committed this crime will be free before the paperwork's done. It's called an online booking sheet. I filled out many of those during my police career. And I can tell you, when I worked in Manhattan, when I worked in Brooklyn, these types of burglaries are exactly what Nicole said. They are career criminals. This isn't the only location hit near here. There was an attempted burglary of another commercial establishment a short distance away. We had a robbery on Amboy Road, a carjacking. This is the climate that the anti-police rhetoric and emboldened criminals has gotten us under one-party rule. You can make up whatever excuse you want. When someone is able to stand on Highland Boulevard and break the front door to get into an establishment, they know there's no consequences. It's time we hold Albany accountable. It's time we put Michael Tannousis in the state assembly to be a strong partner of mine. Between my law enforcement experience and his law enforcement experience, it's what Albany needs. And I implore you to get out there and vote. Early voting's today. Voting, that's what matters. Let your voices be heard. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce Mr. George Malliotakis, who is the owner of Andrew's Diner and was the victim in this case.
I'm here. I never wanted to live in New York. I'm here 53 years. I lost money in business. But they took whatever they did, whatever they took from me, they took it without my concern. And there was not a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. There is 10 burglaries around me. I wish I knew a little better, but I'm hoping we catch this guy. And the only way to catch him is try hard. And if they try, they're gonna get him. And I wanna get him. And I want justice. I wanna see safe. I don't wanna take my children and leave to go to another state. I have a lot of children, grandchildren. I wanna stay in the state that I was almost born here. I just wanna stay here. I'm thinking of different ways of take care of this matter, but I have a big family and I can't do that. And I'm hoping my mind will clear. Right now I'm not clear. Right now I am in a bad shape in my mind, and I hope these people do something. Thank you.
And just if I could just add that I spoke with George the other day, Michael and I, and we've also spoken with the NYPD. They are increasing surveillance and patrol, which is important. But it just shows you this is why our NYPD needs the resources, especially when you see crime skyrocketing. The idea of cutting $1 billion from the police, the idea of taking away tools from them at this time when they need it most is critical. So I've spoken with the 122 Captain Wilson, and we feel very confident that they're doing everything they can to find this individual and bring them to justice.
Okay, at this point, I'm just going to ask for any questions. Possibly out there.
Mr. Malliotakis, you had mentioned this briefly, but you've been here since you're 16, with the pandemic going on, rising crime. Have you ever seen anything like this? Is this
Anything like that?
something that you were prepared to deal with? I mean, how are you coping with everything going on?
No, I never seen anything like that. I know there is things around, there's a lot of drugs around and a lot of things around, but I will never imagine there will be pigs in my area, not one, but I would say 10. Within 2 weeks, I will never, I think I'm in a war zone. I am that, so I have to, I said before, maybe I have to do different to protect my family, myself, and maybe I don't want to go to jail. If they can catch them, we're in trouble. So they better check them. They better catch them. They better catch them.
And
Never seen anything like that. Never seen anything like that. In my neighborhood, whatever neighborhood I lived in, because I lived in a lot of neighborhoods.
What was on Staten Island? Or you were in Brooklyn?
I was in Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, everywhere.
All
I was
over the
everywhere.
Sure.
I never had, this is what I had. When I came to this store 22 years ago, I had restaurants, people walk away. Some people, they come, they eat, they run away. Over here, people come back. They came back. I forgot my check in my pocket. They will come back. I never had it so safe. Up till maybe 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks later, everything tumbled. In 2 weeks, everything tumbled. But this is the safest area that I opened a restaurant. And all these people that come here, they don't want to cheat you with a dime. And it was very safe, but things happen. Things toppled down. I don't know where, but it did.
And Mr. Tannousis, both your opponents have styled themselves as centrist. I just want to see, where you guys see daylight between you, how you think your time in office would differentiate from theirs.
Sure. You want to go first?
Whoever.
It's, Max Rose says he's a centrist when he's running for campaigning, when it's campaign time. But he has shown that he's not a centrist. I mean, so is he saying Nancy Pelosi's a centrist too? Because he votes 97% of the time with her. I mean, if he's a centrist, that means Nancy Pelosi then is one as well. And secondly, he's tried everything to backpedal and try to backtrack on policies that he has supported. 2018, he made it very clear. He supported Cuomo's bail law. Very clear. He said he supported Mayor de Blasio's plan to close Rikers Island. He did march in front of the 122 precinct, which I'm still trying to figure out, what did the men and women of the 122 precinct do to warrant him standing outside with individuals that chanted defund the police? He's trying to backpedal now because he's about to lose an election. And the only time he started talking about, bail reform was when I started holding him accountable for him indicating in 2018 that he supported the Cuomo's bail law. The reality is he lent his voice for it. We're in this situation because Max Rose lent his voice to that effort to dismantle our bail laws here in the state of New York.
I just want to say, in regards to my opponent is trying to paint himself a centrist, and he has even made statements that he will fight against this bail reform law. But in actuality, the real issue is, who do the voters think is actually going to be able to fight against the bail reform law and for our public safety? What triggered me to run for this seat are the actual bail reform laws. I was a prosecutor for 8 years. I was trying homicides. And I knew once they passed the bail reform law that the only people it would benefit are the career criminals. That's what triggered me to run for this seat to begin with. So, my opponent might try to paint himself a centrist. He might say that he's going to fight against the bail reform laws, but in actuality, everyone knows that the Democratic Party in Albany has been hijacked by a radical progressive movement, and that anybody within their own party that challenges them is punished. So I ask you, the voters, who is better prepared to fight for your public safety? And the answer is clear. That person is me. Thank you very much.